What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM. I'm your host, Chris Raybon of the Action Network, and today we've got our NFL player projections for Super Wildcard Weekend. We're going to run through our top 5 players at each skill position, discuss players we're especially high and low on for this opening round of the NFL playoffs, and of course, we'll throw out some player props as well. Joining me, as always, one of the most accurate rankers, the most accurate ranker in the game this year. So congratulations.
Thank you,
Sean. Sean Kerner, the odds maker. What's going on, Sean?
Thank you. Happy playoffs. I'm really looking forward to sweating all of these games with you in New York and potentially with people listening to us right now.
Yeah, so I should mention before we jump in, we have a fun announcement. Sean and I, as well as the rest of all your favorite action experts, are going to be heading to the East Coast this weekend for a Super Wild Card weekend. So we're going to be hanging out. We're throwing a Wild Card weekend watch party at the Shepherd and the Knucklehead in Hoboken, New Jersey. You are invited if you're listening to this. We'll be there. Stuckey will be there. Simon, Chad Millman from the Favorites will be there as well. So the RSVP is free. Even the drinks are free. Doors open 4 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, both days this weekend. So for all the details and how to RSVP, be sure to check out the link in the episode description. And be sure to check it out fast because we do end up filling up for these things. So do RSVP and get ahead of that if you do plan on going. But hope to see you guys there. Yeah. And should be exciting. But let's get through these projections first, the important stuff. Sean, it's obviously abbreviated slates here, but let's still do a little top 5. Who you got for this week?
Yeah, so I got Dak, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Jared Goff.
I like it. Yeah, I got Dak, Josh Allen, Hurts, Mahomes, Goff. So yeah, pretty much standard top 5.
Straightforward.
Right. Who are you high on this week?
Well, he just missed my top 5, but I am high on Matthew Stafford. He's my QB 6, but I just think he has a ton of upside this week against his former team and the Detroit Lions. Was able to sit out week 18, got to rest up for the playoffs, so he's going to be, super healthy, ready to go. And he was playing just at a very high level in the second half of the season. One of the best stretches of his career, in my opinion. He finished the season with, back-to-back 300-plus yard passing games. He has, one of the best rookie wide receivers we've ever seen in Puka Nacua. So very excited about this Rams team heading into the playoffs. And, the Lions defense has been pretty shaky lately. They ended the season allowing 3 straight games of 340 or more passing yards. 2 of those games to Nick Mullins, of course. So he has a ton of upside here, and this is the first time he's going to be heading back to Detroit since he did leave the Lions to go play for the Rams. So it's like the ultimate revenge game spot, playoff game. Can't wait to watch this game.
Yeah, it should be a good one. The Rams are, it's kind of impressive how they're here. We thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in football, at least at one time.
Was their win total like 5.5 this year or something like really low? It was 6.5.
It started at 7.5, and I'm mad I didn't get on. I'm happy I didn't get on it because I probably would have gone under, and then it went down to 6.5, and then they smashed through that, and Sean McVay showing people what he does. I'm high on Joe Flacco. Going against Houston, I think a couple of things. Number one, this is a road matchup for Cleveland, and Houston is a pass funnel defense, 2nd in DVOA against a run, 23rd against a pass. Obviously didn't get tested much with Gardner Minshew a week ago, but I think it could get ugly for Houston's pass defense with a guy like Flacco who's averaging 323 passing yards per game in his 5 starts, 2.6 touchdowns. So I like Flacco to put up numbers. He might turn the ball over, kind of like Nick Mullins. He might turn the ball over, but should put up decent passing numbers nonetheless.
Yeah, and those turnovers kind of lead to him throwing more, right? So
yeah, you lose a possession if they get especially if they get a pick 6. But yeah, you lose field position and get the ball back faster. So yeah. What about who are you low on?
I'm low on Tua this week. He's my QB 11 actually. They're heading to Kansas City. There could be some, really cold temps there, potential winds like in the 10 to 15 mile an hour range. So not ideal for a warm weather team or an explosive passing offense like the Dolphins. So I think they might lean on the run a bit more. The Chiefs are more of a run funnel defense. They rank 5th in DVOA against the pass, 27th against the run. So assuming the Dolphins get Raheem Mostert back this week, I could see them just leaning on Mostert and Achane a little bit more here. Tua just he has pretty much zero rushing upside, so it's tougher for him to overcome spots like this as a result. So there's a ton of good quarterbacks on the slate, so that's why he's, QB 11 on a 12 QB slate, just based on the matchup, the weather, and everything. But I'm pretty low on Tua this week.
Yeah, same for me. The only thing I'll add is, do you think that kind of lowers the floor for Mahomes a little bit too? Because that's the one guy I think in the top 5 that I'm kind of worried about. He hasn't really been that productive, and if Tua's not and the Dolphins aren't putting up a bunch of points, Mahomes probably isn't going for 300 and 3 touchdowns either, right?
No, exactly. And we'll get to that in the running back section, but I think this is a great spot to invest in Isaiah Pacheco. That's a main reason too. But yeah, I don't like having Mahomes in my top 5, but he's barely there. The one thing I will say with Mahomes is we've seen it in the past where he's been leaning on his rushing upside a lot this year, but especially in the playoffs. I feel like we always talk about it. We have to raise his rushing projection by 10 yards once we get to the postseason because he just leans on his legs more. So I think that's how he kind of sustains, top 5 status is his rushing upside.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. What do you got for the prop?
Let's see. Let's go with Josh Allen's passing yards. This is a game where we could see a ton of snow. You and I have both been talking about just the Bills being an extreme run-heavy team now. So just curious I don't think any books are offering props for this yet because of the weather and everything. So curious where you have it, but I'm setting it at 217.5.
Ooh, that's good. That's low. Until that game against Miami, he had been oof.
You got me last week with the Baker one at 215. I didn't want to do it, but I took the over, and of course he finished with 130 or something.
Yeah, that was. That's just Carolina. That's just they haven't scored in the last 2 weeks of the season. That's what happens. All right, let's see. Josh Allen against Pittsburgh.
TJ Watt's been ruled out.
Yeah. Ooh. I'm gonna go. I'll go over. Okay. It's tough to they're definitely throwing less. But I think Pittsburgh, especially if Watt is out, they could be vulnerable to some explosives. But yeah, that's a good line because if Buffalo does get a lead, I could see them just kind of sitting on the ball and this could go under, but. It's also Josh Allen playoff time. He's bound to make a few just crazy throws. Diggs has to, remind people that he's still here. So yeah, I'll go over, but that's a good line.
Yeah, I was gonna go with who will have more rushing yards, Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, and just setting it up as a pick 'em. Then I realized I can't do that. It's gonna be Josh Allen. So he's been running the ball a ton. Yeah,
that's because they're doing more design runs, and then he's scrambling when there's nobody open. All right, let's see. Running back, who you got top 5?
Yeah, running back. Kyron Williams, number 1. Then Rachaad White, Tony Pollard, Isaiah Pacheco, and Aaron Jones.
Got Kyron, Rachaad White, Pollard, Pacheco, and Gibbs.
Nice.
Who are you high on?
I'm high on Isaiah Pacheco. I already mentioned the Chiefs will probably lean on Pacheco heavily here. He should absolutely dominate the early down work. He's been that kind of back all year. But with, Jerick McKinnon on IR, he's also being used much more in the passing game as well. He averaged 5.5 receptions in the 2 games without McKinnon. And have to imagine it's a playoff game. So they're going to play Pacheco as much as humanly possible. Plus, Miami's dealing with just a ton of injuries on defense. They lost, Bradley Chubb for the season a couple weeks ago, but last week they lost both Jerome Baker and Andrew Van Ginkel. They've already been ruled out this week. So those are 2 starting linebackers they're going to be without. should make the matchup even easier for Pacheco. So, with the Chiefs offense just struggling this year, I think this is a week where they could just lean on Pacheco and their defense and walk away with a victory. So I love Pacheco's upside in both like the rushing and receiving markets this week.
Yeah, Pacheco, I mean, they have no choice at this point. And McKinnon, we finally get to see what this playoff offense looks like without McKinnon, because he's always been like, he's always popped up around playoff time and kind of screwed up whatever you thought the usage was going to be.
Yeah, they have like leaned into Clyde Edwards-Helaire a bit over these past few weeks, but I think with the playoffs, they prefer to just, again, use Pacheco as much as possible. But I think, CEH will definitely mix in a bit, but not as much as McKinnon did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then they still got who's the third? P. Ryan, right? They still got.
Yeah, they have been very cautious of giving their third string back any work.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that changing. Last week he saw a ton of work because it was week 18, but they've been just sticking with two back committee so far.
For me, it's James Cook. I think Buffalo, they've kind of shown with this run heavy approach that Cook has been kind of a centerpiece for them. It should be a game when they have positive game script against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And even though you do have guys like Fournette mixing in, Cook's still averaging just under 17 carries a game under Joe Brady and the new offensive coordinator. So if there's ever a game for Cook to have a huge workload again, I think it's this kind of game. So like Cook here, who's, most spots, he's ranked 7th or 8th in terms of running backs this week. But I think he could easily have a top 5 and even finish as the number 1 running back this week, just based on how run heavy Buffalo has gotten at times.
Yep.
Who are you low on?
David Montgomery. He's like my RB12 against the Rams, and we kind of hit the nail on the head on how the Lions would use his backfield this year. I mean, he was a great play in fantasy. I know you had, the most touchdown bet. That was looking like it had a good shot, but unfortunately got hurt. But since week 14, things have changed a bit. They're splitting time between Montgomery and Gibbs on early downs. Montgomery only has a slight edge in terms of rush attempts, 47% to Gibbs is 46%. So this has become more of a split backfield on early downs. Meanwhile, Gibbs continues to dominate the passing down work. But I think the thing that I noticed is they're really splitting the goal line work too. Inside the 5 since week 14, Montgomery has 7 rush attempts and Gibbs has 6. So that's really cut into Montgomery's touchdown upside, which is all he's been banking on lately. And, now the Lions are getting cute and throwing touchdowns to offensive linemen every game now. So that is also hurting Montgomery's upside. So I think just with the Lions maybe limiting Gibbs earlier in the season because he's a rookie, he's not like a bigger back. Now that we're in the playoffs, I think they're going to just unleash Gibbs and probably use him more than we've seen when Montgomery's healthy this year. So he's just a touchdown dependent back who isn't really seeing that work right now. So I'd be very careful with Montgomery and maybe DFS formats or like player props. So Montgomery's a guy that's kind of sinking in my rankings this week as a result.
Yeah, he'll probably need a touchdown to pay off his value. Another guy kind of similar, Najee Harris. I think he's a guy who, he's popped the last few games and a lot of hype around him. He's put up good numbers, but if Pittsburgh's on a 3-game winning streak. If they get into negative game script against Buffalo, Najee Harris's numbers are going to look nothing like they've looked over the past few weeks because he's playing under 40% of the pass snaps. So if, Buffalo gets a lead here, I think you're going to see a lot more Jaylen Warren, and Najee's, it's going to be a struggle for him. You probably won't get as many goal line opportunities or anything like that. So Najee's box score could go from, 100 yards and a touchdown and 20 plus carries to, 8, 9, 10 carries, no scores, and maybe only a reception or 2. So I think Najee's a guy who's the floor is low for him this week.
Yeah, I'm with you on him, but he's like looked so good the past few weeks. He's starting to like slowly turn into Derrick Henry. If you've been watching it, where like he is just out there just bullying people, and then very limited in the passing game now, which is kind of a new thing for Najee. So I agree. If this game gets out of hand, I mean, they're 10-point underdogs now. That doesn't set up to be a Najee game script. It could be more of a Warren game getting like dump offs. So while Najee has looked good, this is a spot where, he is floor is much lower and he's more likely to hit it. So he's kind of a tricky projection, but I'm with you, just being a little bit lower on him this week.
All right, let's see. For the prop, let's go Aaron Jones, rushing yards, because he's been, he's been on fire. Yeah, I guess you could get Dylan back for this one, but that probably won't matter. So let's set his rushing yardage line at, let's go 64 and a half.
Ooh, that's a good one. I have it 66. I'm projecting Dylan to be back. So let me go with the over, just in case Dylan doesn't play. I think his ceiling's a bit higher here. But yeah, I got burnt. I took under 16 and a half rush attempts for him last week. Got absolutely waxed. I knew that was in danger when I think it was like the third drive and Patrick Taylor had only played like 2 snaps. So they're clearly just all in. Like it's playoff time. They want to lean on Aaron Jones as much as possible. The only problem is it is a tougher matchup at Dallas. That's really the downside here. But I mean, I knew right away I lost that bet, so I'm not going to make the same mistake here again. I'm going to go over.
Yeah, that's really the threat is the games, because the last 3 games he's had 20 plus. They've won all 3, and they were up, in most of those games. I know the Carolina came back on them, but they were up 2 scores in that game as well. Yeah. So, that's kind of the only worry with him. But all right, let's go to wide receiver. Who you got in the top 5?
I got CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, and then it's close, but the tie goes to Nico Collins at number 5.
Ooh, I like it. I got Lamb, Hill, Amon-Ra, Puka, and got Mike Evans still there. But Nico. Oh, I mean, he's got a good case for. All
right, well, I have Cooper right there, and I have Mike Evans right there too. But Cooper just had that historic game against the Texans, so he's hard to leave out of the top 5. But it's such a good week, and Nico can't move him down. That first play, oh my god.
Yeah, that's kind of the difference in the game if you think about it. From then on, they both sides pretty much played even.
Yeah,
Steven. All right, who you high on?
Demarcus Robinson. He's my wide receiver 14. And I have to admit, when I was making my initial projections, sometimes I'm just kind of looking at the usage rates. I don't even see the name. I thought I had done Cooper Kupp, and I thought I was looking at Puka Nacua, and it was Demarcus Robinson, obviously. And I was looking at the last 5 games, and Demarcus Robinson was averaging 97% routes run rate, 20% target rate in those 4 games before the Week 18 meaningless game. And I guess he probably got pulled out at halftime, so his routes run rate was 47%, which was pretty much what Puka did. And then I saw that he didn't see a target, and I thought there was like a bug or something. I was like, no, Puka had 4 catches, so this is an error. And then I was looking at Demarcus Robinson. But it just goes to show, like, he is the clear number 3 target in this offense, and they are involving him. And I already mentioned, the Lions' pass defense has been struggling. They allowed 3 straight games of 340-plus passing yards. So if they overcommit to, Kupp and or Nacua, I mean, Demarcus Robinson is sitting right there. He could have a massive game. He's been super consistent, which is weird to say. Just throughout his career, he's been sort of a, wind sprint kind of guy. But in this offense, he fits right in. He's the number 3 weapon. We've seen this in years past with the Rams, when they had like Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods or something. So I love Demarcus Robinson this week. I'll be looking at his player props, using him in DFS. He's way too cheap in DFS, so I'm super high on Robinson. Like I said, I got fooled. I thought I was looking at Puka Nacua's underlying stats.
Yeah, he's taken over that number 3 role because I think it's his run blocking too. So you're not really losing anything going from him to Atwell because he's playing so well at receiver, but you're getting just a much bigger body and a much better run blocker in there. I'm high on a Ram as well, Cooper Kupp. He's wide receiver 12 in consensus. I just think people are sleeping on him a little too much too. This Lion pass defense is not good, and Cooper Kupp, he's the only guy. He actually got rested for They didn't even bother to put him on the field. Like at least Robinson and Nakua played. I know Nakua had the record to go after, but Cooper Kupp, they kind of put him in bubble wrap. He's been running around on 100% of the dropbacks. He hasn't been coming out at all in the past game these last few weeks. The only game he came out was when he was hurt. So I expect 100% routes and against a bad pass defense. So I think Cooper Kupp is getting way slept on. For his playoff career, he's averaging over 100 yards per game on 7.5 catches per game. So this is Cooper Kupp time in the playoffs. Yep. So high on him. Who are you low on?
I'm low on George Pickens. He's my wide receiver 18. And it's easy to be low on Pickens after a 0-catch game. It's also dangerous to assume there's any sort of pattern when it comes to Pickens.
Right.
I mean, he has a wide range of outcomes, let's face it. So he's more than capable of following a dud up with a massive game. But I think the real reason for the dud last week was just the weather. I mean, there was insane rain that entire game. You could barely see what was going on in the field. The camera lens couldn't even, show the game. So it's very likely going to be similar inclement weather in Buffalo this week. Like I said, it's going to be freezing cold, very windy, could see some snow. But I'm mainly concerned about the wind, where just the Steelers didn't want to be chucking it down the field with Rudolph throwing it to Pickens. So it seems like similar situation this week where they're going to try to lean on the run game as much as possible, maybe lean on, a shorter passing game. So I just don't think Pickens is likely to hit, his ceiling here. So I'm a bit lower on Pickens this week.
Yeah, I got a similar guy, Gabe Davis. He's already dealing with that knee issue, but just a really kind of up and down season for him. And you mentioned it. This is cold weather game. Could favor shorter passes that just, except for the fact that it's the playoffs and Gabe always goes off in the playoffs. But I think he might save it for like next round, because I don't know if you need him to score, 4 touchdowns against the Steelers. But he's had 21 or fewer yards in 4 of his last 5 games, 35 or fewer yards in 9 of 17 games. 8 of those he didn't score in. So the floor is just super low. I don't see why they would put a lot on his plate this week. He'd probably be, he'll do the dirty work, probably run block a ton, but I don't see him heavily involved in the receiving game this week. So Gabe Davis for me. All right, what are you doing for the prop?
Amari Cooper, the last time he faced the Texans, went off for how many yards again? Let's see.
265.
265. Okay, so let's try to project him this week. I'm going to set the line at let's just go with 80.5.
Ooh, that's high. 80.5. Jeez. I'll go under. That is high. And they did shut. Pittman was pretty quiet in that last game. I know Stingley. They do have Stingley. He should be able to do something, but I just can't. This has to be one of those games where they're like anyone but Amari, right? Like they have to like triple, quadruple team this guy in this game. Like I don't know how they don't. So like he's in the running for the number 1 overall receiver, but 80 yards is a pretty high. That's like you're getting toward almost Justin Jefferson Tyreek territory with that. So I'm gonna go under, but I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, well, I'm telling Joe Flacco unlocked like the Amari we've all been waiting for. And wasn't he facing Stingley a few weeks ago?
I mean, he was. That's what I'm saying. I just I don't know how they let it do it twice. So I'm just gonna go under.
Yeah, it could be a big Njoku game.
I do like Njoku.
I think he had a big game that week too, right? Let's see.
Yeah, it's just Flacco, bro. Everyone's having a big game under Flacco.
I was like his. Even when they were winning, Flacco is averaging 43.5 pass attempts. It's just a completely different offense. So I think some people might be just using season to date metrics, when they had not just Deshaun Watson, but DTR or PJ Walker or Jeff Driscoll, whoever the hell they had under center. But it's like a completely different pass heavy, fast paced offense that, runs a ton of plays. So, this is a tough projection to set. So I had to set it high. I couldn't let you get away with like taking it over on like a 75 or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's a fair line, but yeah, I'll go under just because that's kind of played into the recency bias, so I gotta fade it, but I don't feel great about it. But okay, let's go to tight end top 5.
Travis Kelce, David Njoku, Jake Ferguson, Sam Laporta for now, assuming he does play, and Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, I got Kelce, Njoku, Ferguson, Goddard, Kincaid, but yeah, Laporta is kind of floating around there. He'll probably be in the top 5, but I mean that's kind of what happens when you play your starters. Like
I know, right?
You don't really need to play your starters. That's a big loss if he sits out. So
was he? I don't think it was incentives, obviously, but was he going for like a tight end rookie record or something?
He got it. I think it was that 10th touchdown and then the yardage. So I think he did get it, but he also got hurt. So
yeah, at what cost? Yeah, that's a bummer. It does sound like it's more likely he's. I thought they said he's basically out for like multiple weeks, but now they're hinting that he could be ready. So this is gonna be tricky all week, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just from a PR standpoint, you got to give him like the positive spin, because it would just suck if like everyone's like, oh man, he's meaningless game, you know what I mean? So you got to just kind of say, yeah, he's playing, and at the last minute, he tried it in warmups and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, even Brock Wright's questionable. So what are they gonna do? Like, is it possible they could like bring in Zach Ertz for one game? Is that crazy?
I don't. You know what? I don't know how the. Doesn't a player have to be on the regular season roster to be on the playoff? I don't know how the playoff roster is looking.
Yeah,
I would have to double check that. But I mean, I'm guessing no, because no one has really sniffed around at Ertz at all. I feel like he would have been signed by now. So I don't know what's up with him.
They might have to do something. Yeah,
they have Anthony Ferkser, I think, on the.
Oh, there we go. Our problem solved. Yeah.
He's been up a week, or I think at least one of these last 2 weeks. He didn't play on offense, but he's been with the team and practicing. So I assume that. I mean, he's a guy, I guess, for DFS, dart throws, things like that. If Laporta misses, it'll be James Mitchell. If Wright is out, it'll probably be James Mitchell and Ferkser. Ferkser is actually like kind of more like a wide receiver, like almost like a Gesicki type guy. Yeah. So I mean, that's somebody to watch, but they'll have to get creative. Maybe they use more 2 running back sets, like use Gibbs. Yeah, that's actually probably what they would do. Now that I think about it, I mean, you don't draft. You have 2 running backs, and one of them like can play the slot. So yeah, they probably do that, and they also have their fullback, Kabinda. So they can
I thought he's toast. I thought he's gone. What happened to him? I think he's gone.
He got like waived and unwaived. Oh. Nah, I think he's back.
Or maybe they'll just keep making like Taylor Decker, Graham Glasgow, whichever offensive lineman is eligible, can be the tight end.
Yeah, no. Kabinda's back. He's on. Like he was elevated last game. He's back on the practice squad. But like they could elevate him again. So yeah, I'm sure between all those guys, yeah, they'll just it probably just won't be tight end heavy if Laporta's out. Okay, who are you high on?
Dallas Goedert, he's my tight end 5 against the Buccaneers. Really came back strong in week 14, returning from his injury. I was surprised, how effective he was coming back from that injury. But, the last 4 games, 90% routes run rate, 23% target rate. With both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith banged up, just may have to lean on him even more. And this is a game we could see some heavy rain. Granted, this game is like a week from today, so not going to really put too much stock in weather reports. But if there is, heavy rain, something like that, going to result in more throws underneath, which would only benefit someone like Goddard. But either way, rain or shine, like Goddard is set up for a big game here. Really could thrive if both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are limited in any way here.
Yeah, I mean, nightmare season for the Eagles.
Oh, yeah. Just brutal.
I'm gonna go with the tight end on the other side in that game, Cade Otton, just because he's.
Oh yeah.
Like this is one of those slates and one of those weeks where you're gonna forget about a guy like Otton, and as you should. He hasn't really done much this year, but now you're talking about a 1-game slate, and you're talking about a game where Tampa Bay may be trailing. Maybe. I mean, who knows? They might not. It's the Eagles, but either way, Philadelphia's bottom 5 in DVOA against tight end. We know they've had their issues with linebackers all season, And Goddard, Otten does see over half of his targets when trailing. All 4 of his touchdowns have come when trailing, and he's running a route pretty much on every single Baker Mayfield drop back. So if you do get into a situation where Tampa Bay is in must throw mode, he's going to be out there with 3 or 4 wide receivers. So like Cade Otton is kind of a forgotten cheap option here, who's no one's really talking about, but especially in DFS, I think he's worth rolling out there.
Yeah, 97% routes run rate last week. The 3rd time in the past 6 weeks. Just absolutely elite playing time.
Yeah, he's always out there. Now, he doesn't always do much, but he's out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the Eagles, they're gonna have to scheme. They're gonna have to. I mean, you gotta scheme on Evans. So maybe Otten gets an extra target or 2. But who are you low on?
Dalton Schultz. He's my tight end 6. Tough matchup here against the Browns. Came up just short on his incentives last week in a pretty easy matchup, or an easier matchup. But he has a much tougher test this week against the Browns defense that, they use man coverage at the highest rate. Very good against tight ends. Although I will note, with Anthony Walker on IR, it does make the matchup a little bit easier for tight ends. He posted, 8 catches against them just a few weeks ago. So not having Walker there does hurt. But this is a tougher spot, and especially if both, Robert Woods and Noah Brown return this week, that could eat into Schultz's target share a bit. So this is a spot where I'm a bit lower on Schultz, but just given it's a smaller slate, he's still my tight end 6, but a little bit lower on him than I was last week.
Yeah, he got vultured by Andrew Beck last week.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
For me, it's not necessarily a guy I'm super low on, but I do want to kind of just talk about him. And you've kind of hinted at it in the past, like what's going on with Kelsey? Like, how confident are we in him as is he the old Travis Kelsey? Is he like one of the top plays on the slate? Is he just kind of like barely, ahead of Njoku? Like, what are we feeling like for Kelsey? Because I mean, this is a career low, 10.6 yards per reception. The yardage per game doesn't look too bad. It's 62. That's kind of in line with his last, it was 66, which is, it's lower than it's been since 2015, but it's still, I mean, he's been in the 70s, 79, 70 the last 2 years. So now it's 66. So yards per game is lower, yards per catch, career low. What do we think of Kelsey against Miami?
Yeah, it's tough. I would say, to answer your first question, I think, he's barely ahead of David Njoku. That's how I'm thinking of him this week. I mean, who knows? He's getting old. We thought the decline would happen at some point. We weren't sure when. Maybe that's what we're witnessing. Maybe, Taylor Swift is a bit of a distraction. He has other things he's worrying about. But I just look at his ADOT the past 3 games. It's 2.9 yards. Mm-hmm. He's not really seeing targets downfield. There's a lot of it. Let's just put it this way. I think it's just everything hitting at once. Maybe having the week off will help. He's been complaining that he's always hurt. He's dealing with things. He's been playing football
Started the season hurt. Remember that? I think that first game, he missed it all outright, if I'm not mistaken, against Detroit, right?
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't able to suit up. So he's just getting that point in his career where it's just harder to recover. So maybe having the week off to rest will help. It's the playoffs, so he'll bounce back. But right now I have Rashee Rice projected for more receptions, more yards than Travis Kelce. So I don't even consider him the number 1 target in this offense right now. I just think he's still, I would say he's still the clear top tight end right now. But the gap is narrowing. And like I said, I think Njoku is right there with him this week. And then looking ahead to next year, I think it's going to be interesting. I think we're seeing all these good young tight ends are going to be moving up. I just think the gap is closing. He's still the top tight end, but he's not as dominant as he was, the past few seasons.
Yeah. And Miami is 30th in DVOA against tight ends. So they haven't been good, but when Kelsey played Miami, 3 catches on 4 targets for 14 yards, no touchdowns. So, it's tough to really hang your hat on anything with Kelsey.
Yeah.
Last 100-yard game came October 22nd against the Chargers. He only had 2 of those all year. So, I'm kind of looking at a little like he's not. It's like one of those guys where I'm jamming him in a flex, even if I already have another tight end or anything like that. Kind of got to play it a little more straight up, but at the same time, like it is Kelsey, and it is Mahomes. So I wouldn't be surprised if, playoffs start and they're like, oh yeah, remember us, and put up a big game at the same time. But yeah,
and with Baker and Van Ginkel both out, that makes the matchup easier, right? Like someone else is gonna have to match up with Kelsey. So I agree. I wouldn't be shocked if he has a big game, but we just have to lower expectations a bit now.
Yeah. All right. Let's see for the prop. Let's go with Kelsey, actually, just because that's the funnest one.
Yeah, I can't believe you put yourself in this situation.
I just think it's an interesting question. It's one that people should want to think about. Because even like the other thing with Kelsey and guys like this, Mahomes, is like, especially in the playoffs, you got to be wary of if you're betting props. Is like you're gonna kind of pay that tax for like the name value of these guys. Yeah. So I assume like whatever line I set, I'm pretty sure the books are gonna probably set it even higher. So, but let's go 66.5.
Under. I have it close. I have it 62.
Yeah.
And I will say, books do have this prop up now. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah. What is it?
55.5. Which I agree.
Ooh.
They have to set it higher. Like, that they're just taking over action on him, especially at that number. It does seem low. I wouldn't say go bet the over, but this is a tough prop this week. And do you remember 3 years ago when I was holding my nose and saying I was betting the under 106?
Yep.
Cleared it by halftime. I might have to. Well, this prop's too low, but I might have to undo my law of never betting on Kelsey unders because I've been missing out.
Wow, no, 55.5. That tells you. I mean, number one, the weather is obviously a concern, but number two, it tells you that like where the public sentiment probably is with Kelsey is probably they might be taking action on unders. That's why they set it, because I don't see why they would open it so low. Like I can see it,
right?
Kind of getting there. So that's
Rashee Rice is at 62.5. That seems low. I would be more comfortable taking his over if I'm being honest. But they have Rice's prop 7 yards higher than Kelsey, which might be the first time that's happened. But yeah, it does seem like they're lowering him due to weather. Like I think that's certainly factoring in here.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But so you might have had a ton of value. You might get a ton of value here on that 66.5. We'll see. But it looks good now.
Yeah.
All right. So that is going to do it for our Super Wild Card Weekend NFL Player Projections episode of the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM. For more great fantasy content from Sean and I, be sure to check out our full fantasy preview episode out now over on the Fantasy Flex podcast channel. Of course, my weekly betting preview episode will be out every Thursday with Stuckey right here on this channel, as well as our weekly best bets episode. Don't forget to come hang out with us this weekend. Again, if you're in the New York, New Jersey area, Shepherd and the Knucklehead, RSVP information will be linked in the episode description. ActionNetwork.com for all of our NFL fantasy and betting content. FantasyLabs.com for our DFS tools and models. Also, information about the Action Network Discord server in the episode description as well. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this shmoney.